Hi everyone, Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and I have another card to share with you today that I made with my gel press and Jaded Blossom supplies. So here we go. So I'm using the You Are Succulent stamp set, and I went ahead and pre-colored these images. They were stamped with the Ink on 3's blackout ink, and then colored with Copic markers and cut out with a 0.4 border using my Brother Scan and Cut. So here's my gel press, and I've just slapped it on one of those quilting squares. Mine's a 5x7, and I've got my distress inks out. Peeled paint, broken china, worn lipstick, and speckled egg. And what I'm doing here is I'm just applying these dye inks to, to my gel press here. Just, really quickly. This is sped up a little bit just so, I don't take all day doing this. So I'm just sort of doing it in lines. It's nothing special because, like I said, I'm still learning how to use this thing. So now I'm popping on the worn lipstick because I thought that would be the closest color to match the color of the cup that my one of my cactuses were in. So I'm just using my brayer here, rolling off the extra. Now this is just a piece of Recollections white cardstock cut at 4.25 by 5.5. So there we go. So that looks all right. But, I'm going to mess around with it some more. So I'm just going to add some more inks. And I'm just adding them and, moving the ink around. Easy peasy stuff. Putting it back on. And I'm just doing it until I like the outcome. So it's like, that looks all right too. But, let's add a little more. So I'm going to add more worn lipstick at the top. I end up pulling out Abandoned Coral in Distress Oxide when I do some stamping on this later, that seems to match the color a little bit better. So, that's what I got going on. So now I'm adding some more of the speckled egg, which is one of the newer colors from, Ranger, which is awesome. They've got a new color out, actually, that I just ordered from Simon Says. And for the life of me, I can't remember it while I'm taping this video, but suffice it to say I can't live without it, so I had to order it. So there we are, spreading the ink around, adding a little bit more ink. And I'm just trying to go for like a sort of like a clean background with a distressy look. So I keep adding more and more. And of course I could have stopped after this because, looking back, I didn't mind it. Like I didn't mind it, but I had to keep going because, that's just me. More is more, right? And I'm going to add a little bit more. The nice thing is that these are pretty forgiving, these gel presses, and you can get some pretty cool backgrounds. So now I'm going to add some water using my Distress sprayer from Ranger. And I also added some, I'm adding some Distress ink on, let me see. Well, first of all, I'm going to, like I said, flick some water on it. I'll pick up some of that, with a microfiber cloth. There we go. And now I'm thinking, I got to sort of tone down things a little bit, add a little bit more. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just sort of figuring it out. It's like, what am I going to do with these images? And they look actually good on it just as is. But, I'm going to add some smooshing. So now I've got a piece of acetate. That's just from my stamp set. And I'm just adding some Distress ink. And add a little water. And then I'm going to pounce my background into it. So what I'm doing is I'm building up layers just to kind of make things a little more interesting. And like I said, it looked good before. Like I could have stopped, but I don't know how to stop. So this is what happens when you don't know how to stop. But I actually like the outcome. It turned out really neat. So now I'm adding on some more. The last time I played with this gel press, I actually used my Distress Oxide inks, and they worked awesome with it. But I have to say the Distress inks worked great too. It gave a different look, a little bit different. I think that the Distress Oxide inks almost give a creamier look. So now I'm pulling out my paint splatters too from Jaded Blossom. And all I'm doing is I'm going to add a bunch of little stamped kind of hash marks and stuff from this paint splatters too. And I'm just distressing the background. When in doubt, if you're not completely thrilled with your blends, use one of these Distress, paint splatter stamp sets. And, it really, it just adds something to it. It adds some more, some more dimension And I thought it turned out really great. So there we are. I'm just adding a little bit more. I'll add the paint swipe too. I actually thought of using a stencil over this, and I did. You'll see that I used the Random Hearts stencil with the speckled egg in Distress Oxide ink, and I didn't like it. And it's going to be covered up anyway by what I'm doing later, so that's why I didn't really mention it and show it. I kind of cut it out of the video. There we are. So that is the worn lipstick, and I told you that I will actually bring the Abandoned Coral in later because I thought it just looked a little bit better. So I'm just going to add a little bit more to this background. And, you know, like I said, I could have stopped any time, but, you know, I just kept going and going and going. Now, when this was all dry, after I dried it with a heat tool, I actually ran it through my laminator machine a couple of times just to flatten it because it did get a little bit warped. I'm not using, you know, watercolor paper here. I'm just using normal paper. There we go. So I'm liking it so far, but now I've got my Ranger Splat box out and I've got Distress paint in Picket Fence, and I'm going to do a little bit of splatter. There we go. And remember, this is permanent, so you got to wash up everything up after. And now I'm going to splatter with some Distress peeled paint, Distress Oxide. And I'm going to splatter that. I'm just using my acrylic block here, and I'm using just a you know, run-of-the-mill paintbrush, nothing special. There we go. I also dabbed up some of the spots of the white, the Distress paint in white, just because it was bubbled up. Now I'm using my Circle Internal Scallop dies and the Stitch Circle dies, and that's the 3-inch one. And I cut out just a circle that I'm going to blend some Distress Oxide Speckled Egg using a blender brush there. And I used white paper tray ink cardstock to cut the frames for this, that Circle Internal Scallop die. It fits perfectly. So there, I cleaned up. Now I'm going to add a little bit of water just so I get, you know, a little bit of a, you know, water splattered background, sort of like the rest of my card. There we go. So pretty. So now I'm going to, I waited till it dried, obviously. Now I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue, and I'm going to add a layer around this. There we go. And then I'm going to build this up 3 times. So I'll have 3 circles on here. I don't show all 3, I think. I think I sort of fast forward ahead, or maybe I do. I can't remember. I had to cut back a little bit because I was running out of space. I like to keep these videos under 15 minutes. So now I do weight it in between with my acrylic block, but I did do 3 layers. So this is an A2 size card base, 4.25 by 11 inches, scored at 5.5 using my Martha Stewart scoreboard and a Teflon bone folder. There we go. You see I'm working on my Ranger Tonic Tim Holtz glass craft mat. Now I'm using my ATG gun, and I'm going to tape this background. This background I actually cut down 1/8 of an inch smaller than an A2 size card. So it's got a tiny bit of a border, and I'm just going to pop that in place. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm using the alphabet dies too, and I'm using the flag dies. And what I did was I'm doing some stamp surgery. So I'll be using a stamp set that I'm going to cut, and then this is going to be the sentiment that goes with it. What the sentiment that I wanted, I didn't have. So that's what I'm going to create my own. You can do that. So now I'm using these alphabet dies. I cut them out. I cut the letters out with American Crafts black cardstock. I'm using my reverse tweezers from EK Success. And I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue to stick them down. You'll see that I've got purple tape taping this flag in place just so it doesn't move around. I find that I get it straighter that way. So this is going to say on point. So the actual card will read, I hope your birthday is on point. Sort of a play on the cactuses. Now there's some adorable stamps from that succulent stamp set from Jaded Blossom. But I decided to make my own. This is the stamp, I believe, is from Hedgehugs. I think I'll show it a little bit later here, I believe. But I think it's called Hedgehug. Is it Hedgehug Kisses? Hedgehugs? Oh, no, just Hedgehugs. And that's where the, stamp that comes, the stamp that I do the stamp surgery on. There it is, Hedgehugs. So I'm going to cut off the supersonic. Instead of I hope your birthday is supersonic, to go with the hedgehogs, I am cutting off supersonic, and then I'll have I hope your birthday is on point. So this is what I've got so far. So I'm going to go ahead and freehand stamp the sentiment in VersaFine Clair and Nocturne ink in the lower left-hand corner. It's like, no, don't make a mistake. There we go. You'll see that I practice off to the left there to make sure it's stamped well. And I popped up, geez, I don't even remember if I might have erased the part where I actually popped up all of my little plants. I'm so sorry. Or did I? No, here I am. Sorry, guys. I just had them laid out. So originally I was going to put the sentiment along the bottom of that scalloped circle die. But that's why I built it up with paper on the bottom part. But then it turns out it looked too, I don't know, it was just too bright and distracting. So I decided that's where I'm going to pop up my little plants, and then I'll use the on point on the inside. Now, I did coat the on point in glossy accents, and I let that dry overnight. So that's why they're a little, it's nice and shiny. But here I am. I'm just trying to decide how these are going to look. I love these little cactuses. So easy to color. All my colors will be listed on my blog. I used Copics. There we are. Yeah, aren't they pretty? Oh, and I just find like I used three shades per color. And that's it. Like really easy coloring. And I quite liked how it turned out there. So now I'm using my Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. And I'm just using that for a little bit of dimension. I'm going to put one of these cactuses on the inside with the sentiment. So now I've decided I've got to do something to the inside. Normally I have some leftover paper from the, from the paper that I created for the front, but I didn't this time. So I ink blended with Distress Oxide ink and Peel Paint after using Post-it notes to sort of mask off an area. And now I'm going to stamp in the other colors. That same paint splatter stamp set, Paint Splatters 2, just some freehand stamping, and just so it has some interest on the bottom of the card there. So nothing special. And there we go. And you'll see I'm using the Abandoned Coral. I did use the Abandoned Coral on the front, just on the stripes. I covered up my worn lipstick that I used in the first place. So there we go. So I'm just sort of stamping the checkers and the dots, and now I'll remove that. And I like how it turned out, kind of neat. So now I'm taking that on point sentiment. So I hope your birthday's on point. And I'm going to mat it on one of the other flag dies using that Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue again. And this is when I decide, oh, I can't use the flag end. It's not going to fit in there. Not if I want to put that cactus beside it. So I cut off a piece. And then you'll see what I do. This is how you make things work, people. So I'm going to move that flag over so none of the flag is showing. I'll be able to trim it off. And then I'm going to use the other end on the other side. And I'll be trimming off both sides. And then I'm going to pop that cute little cactus that I colored in the center. So no one will know that there's, a missing spot on there. There. Perfect. So it worked out perfect. So I do trim that off. I don't show it just because I was running out of time. So now I'm using Pretty Pink Posh's Sparkling Confetti Mix. And I'm using my glossy accents to stick them down and my Studio Katia embellishment wand to pick them up. And I'm going to pop them all down. And then that's about it. Like super easy peasy stuff. I'm really liking this gel press to make little fast backgrounds. Now this background wasn't as fast because like I said, I was fuss farting around with it a lot. But in the end, I think it turned out great. So I can see this being a perfect tool to use, especially with Jaded Blossom stamps and dies, right? You can never go wrong with that. There we go. So I'm just popping those all on. And they turned out so pretty. So thank you so much for stopping by. And be sure to drop on by another time. I'll have another card in the future here for you on my YouTube channel. And, you can get all the details on my blog at leescraps.blogspot.com. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Bye.